Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Hannah and this is Colour Chaos Crafts. Today's project includes various sardines of different sizes, including this teeny tiny one, a partially finished Amigurumi crochet submarine, and we are asking ourselves the question, can I make crochet based on a silly little song about submarines and sardines? Let's find out. Grab your beverages. Iced coffee for me, of course. Let's get started. So allow me to explain what's going on with all these different sardines. First of all, I need to explain that this project this week is inspired by a song that I sing at a baby group that I go to. In fact, it's not really a baby group, it's for mums. I love it because every week we go in a group of mums and we sing loads of different songs. Some of them are gentle, some of them are calm, some of them are funny. And this song, our leader brought to us one week and I just fell in love with it. And I just thought, okay, well, love this song, already love sardines. You know, I don't just mean eating them, but I mean the colours that are on the beautiful packaging that you get from Portugal, traditional tins. It's massively trendy right now. There's loads of stuff with sardines all over it. I've got a sardine bag, I've got a sardine card case, we got sardine napkins, there's sardine wallpaper that I love that I found on Etsy. It's all going on. However, this particular song, I've been told that it's actually an adaptation of a Spike Milligan poem, but it goes like this. A baby sardine saw her first submarine. She was scared and looked through the peephole. Come, 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 said the sardines' mum. It's only a tin full of people. So I may have started that at a slightly higher key than maybe I should have done, but the point still stands. This is a really cute, funny little song about a baby sardine who saw a submarine and was scared. And her mum said, don't be scared, it's only a tin full of people, which obviously is a funny little play on the fact that sardines come in tins for people. So I heard this song and I was immediately like, right, that's it. I'm going to make it my entire personality, which I have. The people at my group are completely sick of me going on about sardines, but there we are. So I decided to channel my love of this song and sardines into making this amigurumi project. What I'm aiming for, and I'll put some examples on the screen here, is a kind of amigurumi model. So these are the bits that I've done so far. This submarine is looking a little bit misshapen at the moment. Apologies for the weird light, like I've got really bright sun. What can I say? I'm not going to complain about the sun, but anyway. So this submarine I have done from a pattern. I'll obviously put all the patterns that I've used in the description of the video when this goes online, and the sardines as well. I didn't make these up. They are both from different patterns that I found on Etsy. And so this submarine, I want to effectively have it as a model, and then to have the sardines kind of swimming around it, so we can see that the baby sardine will be looking into a peephole, as the song says, and then the mummy sardine will be alongside the baby sardine and saying, don't worry, it's only a tin full of people. And I want the sardine to have its own little personality as well. The submarine, I should say. I keep getting them mixed up. This is the submarine, Hannah. And I want to put little eyes on it as well, but we'll come to that later. Hopefully we will finish it off in this video. That is the goal. I'm now going to explain to you why I already have 4 different sardines when the song's only got a baby and a mummy in it. What's going on there? Let me explain. This sardine here, and I will show you a close-up. So this sardine was just my tester of the pattern. So as you can see, it's in sort of 2 different colours, this bubblegummy pink and this light pink. I also experimented with some rudimentary embroidery skills of doing the eyes in French knots, and I kind of like it. It gives it a kind of like this beady little look. So this was the size that the pattern came out. I did it in a 2.5mm hook. I will look up what the original pattern said, but it wasn't 2.5mm as far as I'm aware. And it came out quite a good size. So I thought, okay, cool, that's my little prototype, just to see what size we're working with. And then I made the real one to use in the eventual final model, which is with this variegated pink yarn. As you can see, the colour is kind of shaded, and it kind of goes from dark pink to light pink. And then the embroidered eyes as well. So this is going to be the mummy sardine. And then I went and thought, right, well now I've got a mummy sardine, I need to make a baby sardine. So I first made this little guy and I thought, hang on a minute, that doesn't look that much of a baby. I think I used a 2.5mm hook for this and then a 1.5 or 1.75mm hook for this. And as you can see, they are a little bit smaller. He is a little bit smaller than that one. And the stitches are a bit smaller, but I just thought, this doesn't look like a baby sardine to me. It looks like, at a push, a teenage sardine. So I thought, right, that will not do. Because one of the things that I love about the song is that it's all about baby sardines. And you want to think, oh, baby sardine, that sounds really cute. So you want, when you look at the model, to think, that is definitely a baby sardine, right? So, ta-da! I made this little guy. Now this little guy is approaching what one might call micro crochet because the stitches are super, super tiny. And I did it with a 0.6, don't know if you can even see that, 0.6mm hook, which is crazy. If you compare that to a very normal sized 4.5mm hook, which itself is not too huge, and if you compare it to, say, a 2mm hook, which is pretty small as far as crochet hooks go, this one is practically a glorified needle. So I used that, and what I did is I split the yarn because I was using DK weight yarn, which is quite thick compared to a lot of yarn out there. But I didn't want to get a different colour because I really like the variegated yarn and it goes with the variegated pink of the mum. So I used the DK yarn that I already had and I split the yarn. This yarn is 3-ply, which means it's got 3 different threads that make up the actual full thread of the yarn. That means that if you untwist it and you separate the threads, you will have 3 threads, and what you can do is you can untwist along the full length of the thread essentially, and then you end up with what is a yarn that is 2/3 of the thickness of the full length, and that's what I ended up doing. And I used a hook that was more than half as small, again, as the hook that I used for the mummy. And that produced what is a very difficult to crochet, but very, very cute, I think, little baby sardine. So we've got the mummy sardine and the baby sardine. So we've got the beginning of the song. A baby sardine saw her first submarine. Cool. But, hello, the submarine. The baby sardine saw her first submarine. She was scared and looked through the peephole. Well, there's not a peephole on this yet. So we're going to make one, and that's what the rest of this video is going to be about. We're going to be making the rest of this submarine so that we can attach, somehow, we're going to figure that out too, the mummy and the baby sardine to the submarine so that we can have this song in crochet form. Let's get going. And I'm just finishing off the final propeller. So now I have 3 propellers of sorts, and I'm going to attach them to the back of the submarine at this end. First of all, however, we have what is known as a crap load of ends to sew in. Some people might say that's the worst part of crochet. I don't really mind it, but here is my tapestry needle and I'm gonna sew all of these ends in, and then I will meet you just before I sew them to the actual submarine. Okay, so we're back. So now we have submarine, 1 peephole, 2 peepholes, 1 periscope, 1 lens to be sewn onto the periscope, 1 small peephole, 2 small peepholes, 1 propeller, 2 propellers, 3 propellers. So now I'm going to sew all of them together and maybe put a little face on the front of this guy, because otherwise it's a bit like literally faceless. So I'm going to maybe put a face on him and try and see if he looks submarine enough, and then I will get back to you. We are later in the day and this guy is done. So I put a little face on him using safety eyes. If this was for a child, I wouldn't have used these because they're really easy to just like pop off. Even though they're called safety eyes, they're really actually not. And then I've sewed the peepholes on and the propeller, and then the periscope has all been sewed on as well with the little lens. And so yeah, I'm pretty pleased with him. I think he looks pretty cute. I also embroidered some little pink underneath his eyes there for some little cheeky little cheeks. So yeah, so now we've got the submarine, the mummy sardine, and the teeny tiny little baby sardine. So we've basically got the building blocks of our song, and now I've got to figure out how I'm going to mount them on a block like I showed you earlier, and try and make them into a model that will properly illustrate the song. Not sure if you can see the back of my golden retriever there. She's very beautiful, but she's currently snaffling away at something, so I'm not sure if she's going to come say hi. So, in the interest of using stuff that I already have rather than going out and buying something new, I like the idea of doing this kind of on a piece of driftwood, but I have already got these that I bought for a previous project, so I am going to just try and see what it looks like on this. It's just like, it's made for crafts, but it's effectively like a slice of wood, real wood. And what I'm going to do is, I was envisaging, you can kind of poke holes in this quite easily because it's really quite soft wood. So I'm envisaging kind of poking a hole in this using a needle, or at a push a drill, but I don't really want to use a drill. I'd prefer to just use kind of a needle, or this is kind of a blocking, like a knit blocking pin. So it's got quite a sharp point on the end, and you can make, I don't know if you can already see, but you can make quite deep holes in the wood. So my idea was that I was going to use a wire, embed it into the wood like so, and then have the sardine effectively onto this bit so that it's like the sardines almost like floating. However, that will probably work with a baby sardine and at a push the mummy sardine, but this guy is pretty chunky piece of kit. Like, he is full of fiberfill, and he's not going to be supported by just one little kind of wire like that. So the option is that I create some sort of structure under here, and the thing about this is that the holes, I can get wire, I can get needles, you know, so if I wanted to, I guess I could sort of almost feed through some wire to try and sort of make some kind of platform or structure here that I could then attach a wire to at the bottom, and he would hold his own weight a little bit more. If I was really clever and thinking ahead, I could have crocheted him around his own sort of skeleton and done it that way. You obviously, I guess if I was going to do this again, I might think about doing that. I might kind of make a supportive structure out of wire first that I knew was going to support the weight, and then kind of crochet around it so that he'd already have, you know, a piece of wire coming out here that would support his weight. But alas, I am not that much of a planner, so I haven't done that. So instead I'm going to have to figure out a way of supporting his weight without putting loads of wires coming out. So one way that I have thought about doing is using one of these, which is a doll holder that I have used before for previous projects. So the way this works is that basically it's sold as a generic doll holder, and effectively it goes into a plastic piece here which holds it up. You slot it in, and the tension of this keeps it slotted into the base, and then you sort of balance whatever doll it is that you want to display kind of like that. And that's how it supposedly displays whatever it is that you've made. However, I'm not going to do it like that. I was actually thinking that these, because they've got tension under them, could wrap around the wood quite well. Like that. And it holds on like that. It doesn't look particularly neat, but I think it kind of does the job for this particular purpose. I could probably refine it if I wanted it to look perfect. But in the meantime, I might try and see if I can attach the submarine to this here rather than doing it this way around, and see if this kind of already thick piece of wire could help me and work in my favor, so that I don't have to start twisting loads of smaller pieces of wire to try and make something that's as kind of taut and thick as this one already. So let me see if I can figure something out with that, and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I feel like this was reasonably successful. It looks a little bit lopsided, but the good thing is that the weight is holding. And then if I pop this, if I lift this up so you can see what I'm doing, if I try and pop that, I don't know if it's going to work now. Let me see. So what I'm trying to do basically is like get the tension that's in this wire and use it to get the wire to hold the side of this. So let me try and do it when it's on the table. 1 second. If I lift it up like that, you can see what I mean. But it's really flimsy, like it's going to pop out. So I do need to find a way of getting this wire to be supported by this base. So maybe, I don't know, I can just use a glue gun and do it like that. Or maybe put some holes in the bottom here and kind of wedge the wire in. But I still want it to look nice. I don't want it to kind of be, you know, I don't want to like gouge this out too much. So let me kind of see if I can think of a way of holding that on, maybe with some loops of wire around here. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with how that is holding. It's definitely holding the weight of the submarine pretty well, so that we can have this guy there and then the other sardines kind of swimming around and looking through the peephole. So that's the idea. Watch this space.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
So my super janky idea has appeared to work. So basically what I've done is I've got some craft wire. I have used it just in kind of little U-shaped pegs. I just cut them, and I can literally just cut them with my craft snips because that's how sort of soft and thin that wire is. And then I've hammered down the wire into the base, and that holds this bit of wire here so that the sardine stands up. So I'm quite pleased with how that's looking so far, considering that I started this with absolutely no idea how I was going to do it, literally just an idea and a few random craft supplies. I'm quite pleased with how it's looking so far. So now I'm going to figure out how to put the sardines on, and I'll come back to you.
One eternity later.
So far my attempts have been a fail. The actual submarine is holding fast, so that's really working. However, it's quickly becoming apparent that my attempts to get the baby sardine to be looking through the submarine like this is not working. This wire just keeps on falling over and it's not really supporting the weight of the sardine. So I'm back to the drawing board on this one. I may just be able to use slightly thicker wire, and then that will solve the problem with this wire not supporting the weight of the sardine. I mean, like, even if I try and sort of, the way that I've attached it to the bottom, which is just trying to twist the wire around and round, is not working. It kind of looks cool. I mean, one possible solution would be to attach the nose of the sardine to the submarine so that it looks like she's looking in, but I kind of want the effect to be that she's peeping in rather than like got her nose up against the glass necessarily. I just think it would be cooler if she's like floating in space rather than like obviously hanging off the submarine. So it's time for plan B. I'm going to try and use possibly some thicker craft wire, and let's see how we get on. It is another day and another week in my ever messier craft room, but we are back with the finished product, which I am actually really pleased with, considering, as I've said I think before, that I started this with a very vague idea of what I wanted to do and no idea how I was going to build the stand, and no real previous experience of building a stand like this. I also really like this little piece which I've put on here, which says Original Sardines, and it's actually an iron-on patch that I got from Hobbycraft, and all I've done is stuck it onto a piece of card, and then I've glued the card onto the wood, and I really like how it just brings out the colours, the purple and the pink. There's yellow around the edge. It's just a really happy accident that I happened to pick up a patch about sardines, which obviously I love, and that it all just ties it all together and makes it really obvious, if it wasn't already, that we're talking about sardines. And I just like that that's kind of there as a bit of a display in the middle of the stand. I did also consider putting a QR code or a link to the song or a recording of me singing the song, because obviously this is supposed to be an accompaniment, a crochet accompaniment to the song that I sang at the beginning of the video. But hey, I'll just have to sing the song, and then, you know, that's how people will know that that's what's going on here, in case there was any doubt. If you've watched all the way to the end of this video, I'm really happy to have had you here. Thank you for coming on my crazy sardine whimsical crochet journey, and for sticking with me as I try and make whatever mad idea comes into my brain next. In the meantime, a baby sardine saw her first submarine. She was scared and looked through the peephole. Come, 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 said the sardines' mum, it's only a tin full of people. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Thanks for watching, thanks for coming with me through the chaos, and I'll see you next time.